So let's start cloning the electron-webpack quick start project. You need to type in the terminal git clone dept1 to clone only the latest branch, the address of the repository, and the directory where you wanna clone it. Once the project has been cloned, open the project on your favorite editor. To install the dependencies, you can use npm. However, the recommended package manager is yarn, so install it if you don't have it already. I'm going to use npm I g for global yarn. Once installed, I'm gonna type yarn to install all of the dependencies. If we go to the source directory, we can see that we have a renderer and a main script. The renderer script will be used to display the contents. You can consider this as a single browser tab. Although it's not exactly the same, the idea is very similar. The main script will be executed on the main process. You can control some of the browser features from here, like opening and closing the developer tools, creating menus, and new windows. As we can see here in the index script, we have some minified code. So let's open the terminal and run yarn run dev. And this command should execute the Electron app. After the app is executed, we can see the sample index file here. Let's close it and install TypeScript support. We are gonna use yarn add --dev TypeScript and electron-webpack-ts. Thanks to Electron-webpack, TypeScript should be working out of the box. So let's go back to the file explorer and rename index.js to index.ts. So let's clear the terminal and run again yarn run dev. So this is not a big deal, we just have to create a very small tsconfig file. We don't have to declare other options, because everything is already included in the Electron-webpack package. So let's just create the tsconfig.json file and paste the example code that we have here. As you can see here, we are just extending Electron-webpack tsconfig base. This should be enough. So let's go back to the terminal and run the development commands again. And here we have it. The same application is running with TypeScript. If you are getting some errors in the terminal, it is normal for this case because we are not declaring some data types. This doesn't matter at this moment because we are gonna get rid of this code anyway. So let's go to the next step, which is installing React. First, let's start with the dev dependencies. Yarn add --dev add babel /preset -react add types /react and add types /react DOM. Now let's install the regular React dependencies. Yarn add react DOM. Once installation is finished, let's try to edit the main file. Make sure you rename the file to have the tsx extension. Otherwise, we will not be able to use JSX syntax. So let's get rid of the sample code and import React from React. Then let's import React DOM from React DOM. And then let's create the root component. It's gonna be a functional component. And let's insert a div and some sample message like welcome and maybe some text here. Okay, let's see the error. Okay, since we are getting cannot use JSX unless the JSX flag is provided, it means that we have a problem on the tsconfig file. So let's go to the tsconfig file and let's add the missing option. In this case, it would be inside compiler options, JSX, React. This should be enough. Let's go back to the index file. And here it is. Looks good. Okay, let's continue. React DOM.render. And we're gonna pick the root component. We need to pick a target, in this case document.getElementById. For this case, electron-webpack will create automatically a zip with the app ID. So let's pick app. Let's save, go to the terminal, and run the development command. Cool, as we can see here, the sample code has been executed correctly. If we go to the element inspector, we can see that we have the div with ID app, as mentioned before. This is the root div and the contents inside. Cool, let's now add SASS support. There are a lot of other preprocessors that we can use, such as less, but for this case I'm going to use SASS. So let's go back to the terminal and type yarn add --dev node-sass and sass-loader. Once installation is complete, let's go back to the file explorer and create a new file. It will be called styles.scss. Let's create a root style and let's add some sample styling like text align, center. That should be enough. So let's go back to the index file and import the CSS classes. As you can see here, we are getting an error because the module is not being recognized by TypeScript. However, Electron-webpack already have the setup in place to make it work, but it will still fail because TypeScript is not yet aware of the CSS modules. So let's go to the file explorer and create a new file. I will place it inside the renderer directory and it will be called global.d.ts. We need to declare the module, in this case declare module start.scss const classes. It will be of type object, the key will be a string and the value will be also a string. The default export of this definition would be classes. Once we are back into the index.cs file, we will see that there is no error anymore. We only have a warning about the variable not being used, so let's use it. Div class name equals classes.root. Save the file, go to the terminal and let's run the development command. As you can see in the element inspector, the class is not being applied yet. At this moment, Electron-webpack already have all of the plugins necessary to make CSS modules work. However, the right options are not being used. So let's close the app and let's create an override configuration file. You can place it anywhere you want. In this case, I will be placing it at the root of the project. It will be called webpack.renderer.js. We need to export, so module.exports function config. This is the webpack configuration that will be passed as a parameter, so we can modify it. Inside of the function, let's filter all of the CSS related loaders. So let's type config.module.rules and .filter. In this case, we have a rule and we need to check for the rule. So in order to identify which rule is a CSS loader, we need to convert the test variable into a string. So rule.test to a string, and then make sure that it matches a CSS related loader. So this regular expression is coming from the Electron-webpack website. Basically, we're gonna check if the test variable contains CSS, less, SASS or SCSS. After we finished filtering, we need to iterate over the options, so let's type for each. Again, rule, keep in mind that now we're gonna get the filtered items, so rule will only contain the CSS related loaders. For this case, we're gonna declare a variable which is const CSS loader equals rule.use.find use.loader equals, and this is the name of the loader, in this case CSS loader. There is the possibility of getting a null result when you use find. However, for this specific scenario, we're sure that we're not gonna get a null. So let's not validate that and just use the result immediately. So CSS loader.options.modules equals true. Okay, this is the modified configuration, and now we need to return it. So return config. Now we have to indicate electron-webpack to use this file, because electron-webpack is not yet aware of this override. So let's go to package.json, and at the bottom let's type electron-webpack. For this case is for the renderer process, so renderer and webpack config. We have to use the paths as the file we just created some minutes ago, so webpack.renderer.js. If there wasn't any error, CSS modules should be working correctly. So let's run the development command again. So as we can see here, the file name is incorrect. After doing a quick check, we can see that we missed some characters in the name. So let's go back to the terminal and rerun the command. And it's working. If we go to the element inspector, we can see that the class is being applied here. The class is getting this name because we are using CSS modules, which is the intended behavior, so we do not have conflicts with other class names. Let's now install React Development Tools. To do this, we need to run yarn add --dev types, because we are using TypeScript. If we are not using TypeScript, this step is not necessary. Electron DevTools -installer. After that, we need to install the Electron DevTools installer. So just run yarn add Electron DevTools installer. After installation is complete, let's open the main process index file. This can be a JS or TS file. Since we are using TypeScript, let's rename it. After renaming the file, we need to fix the data type here, which is a browser window or null. Let's import the Electron DevTools now. Import install extension. We use a couple of brackets and let's type from Electron DevTools installer. Inside of the brackets, we type the name of the extensions we want installed. In this case, we only want React Developer Tools. We need to make sure that the extension is loaded before opening the DevTools. As we can see here, the DevTools is opened automatically. However, the extension needs to be loaded before. Otherwise, we will have to close and reopen the DevTools manually. So let's go here, and instead of opening the DevTools immediately, we're going to create an event listener. So app.whenReady.then we're going to install the React extension, in this case install extension, React Developer Tools, then the name of the extension, console.log. You can add a custom message here. In this case, installed the name of extension in case you are using multiple extensions, and we need to place this code down below. So we're gonna open the Electron Developer Tools only after installing the React Developer extension. This way, the React Components tab will be visible on the DevTools. Let's go back to the terminal and run the development command. As you can see here, we have the components and profiler tabs. If we go to components, we only have the root, which is correct because we only have one component at the moment. Okay, let's now install the Fluent UI components. You can use any UI framework you like. For this case, I'm gonna use the Fluent UI components. Fluent UI includes a lot of convenient controls that can be used right away. It doesn't require major configuration changes to your project. Once you are back into the terminal, let's type yarn add Fluent UI / React. Once installation is complete, let's go back to the index file from the renderer process. Let's now import some components. I'm going to create a default button with any text like and a primary button with a different text like subscribe. Alright, let's run the app and see how it looks. If you're getting this error, like invalid hook, is related to the import path. So we go back to the import line and add lib. Let's go back to the terminal and run the app again. And here we have the buttons. We can even add more functionality coming from Fluent UI. So let's try to add a teaching bubble. A teaching bubble is basically just a pop-up message that appears near or below certain DOM elements. So let's import teaching bubble and directional hint. We need to use a state. So let's use return. And on top of the return, const show bubble and set show bubble equals use state. By default is gonna be false. Keep in mind that the use state was imported automatically. So if it's not imported automatically on your editor, you need to import it by yourself. The same will happen with use effect. It's going to be imported in my case, but you may have to add it manually. Use effect, we're gonna have an effect here, but we're gonna update it in a moment. So let's go back here and let's try show bubble and the teaching bubble. So these are gonna be the contents. So I'm just gonna copy and paste the sample content from the documentation, which is this, and we're gonna apply the properties one by one. So call out props, in this case it'll be directional hint dot bottom center. Target, it'll be a string, so we need to add an ID somewhere here. I'm gonna add it to my default button. ID equals target button, and here we're gonna use a selector, in this case target button. After that we can use some extra options like is white, true. Has close button, true. On this mess is an event handler, so we're gonna set show bubble false. And finally we can set a headline. Please read carefully. After that we need to trigger the teaching bubble somehow. If we start with show bubble true, some animations may be missed and we may not pick the attention of the user. So that's why I'm going to use effect to trigger the bubble some seconds later. This is completely optional and you should pick the best way to trigger the bubble, like maybe by clicking a button, or if you like by showing it immediately, although it may not be the best option. So set timeout, set show bubble to true, maybe after 3 seconds. Okay, now it's going to work, but as a small optimization we can even get the ID and we can return clear timeout. So even if the component gets unmounted, we cancel showing the bubble. Okay, let's go back to the terminal and try the code. We wait for some seconds and the bubble appears as expected. Alright, that's all, and I hope this guide was useful to you, and see you next time.